At the outset, I would like to briefly state my view of what I think is a good leader. There exist and have existed leaders of many types and hues. But true leaders are those who make better humans of others, giving them a vision of a better world, inspiring them to greater heights. True leaders possess the gift to inspire others, to subdue and control the animal within others, and lift out the good and humane in them. Such leaders have the ability to give a nation the strength to reach unconquered heights. On the other hand, bad leaders have destroyed not only individuals but entire nations. We have many examples of that in the past and even today, all over the world. A good leader has the rare ability to put the common cause before his or her personal interests at all times. This implies that he must act with extreme commitment and sacrifice. He must be honest in every way with regard to realizing his stated vision, as well as in monetary and material dealings. We also know that an effective leader should possess the humility to heed the voice of others, even his opponents, and the generosity to engage with them in free discourse. The courage to say I was wrong, and the self-confidence to arrive at compromises. A good leader lights up the darkness, giving hope to the desperate and courage to those who will not dare. I must hasten to add here that for a leader to be a great person may not suffice. He, she has to be effective. For this, I believe that the following main things are required. First, a clear vision of what the leader wishes to achieve for his project, for his people, whether it be the leader of a country, of a nation, of a government, the leader of an organization, the leader of a society, company, anything. Then an effective plan of action, as well as the tools and materials to implement that vision. And finally, unswerving honesty, transparency, and commitment to the vision. I must hasten to underline that all this requires many special qualities from a leader. However, they are not difficult to cultivate. All of us humans possess such qualities within us. We only need to do some hard work to bring forth the good in us while suppressing the bad and the horrid. The world has been blessed with many great leaders, while there have also existed destructive ones. The lists are too long to be mentioned here, and I'm sure you know most of them. Now I would like to mention, as I see them, some of the most dangerous temptations for leaders. First, the greed for power. Second, the greed for wealth and money. The two are interconnected. I'd like to quote here from the words of Sri Ravi Shankar. He states somewhere that corruption begins outside the perceived boundary of connectedness. However, boundaries born of this, end of quote. However, boundaries born of narrow, limited perceptions of self and self-interest begin to dissolve when we recognize our global connectedness, that we all belong to one world, and that we are all connected in many different ways. When individuals only think of themselves, corruption and crime begin to take root in society. When a leader forgets why he holds power, that the power bestowed on him is held in trust on behalf of those who gave it to him, the power, and that it is never a right given him to abuse power for his personal benefit. It is never a right given him to abuse power for his personal benefit. He begins to believe, when he forgets all this, the leader begins to believe that power is a God-given gift to him. Power is a unique privilege given to him, so he can do what he likes with it. Then begins the corruption. He then says, I can rob whatever I want from the state, never mind that it will bleed the economy and destroy it. Very quickly, the two attitudes of the greed for power and for wealth and money begin to be self-sustaining. In order to continue to rob, the leader has to consolidate power. In this process, he cannot permit any dissent nor opposition. So he must destroy all those who dare to oppose. Thus, all norms of democracy, freedom, and democratic governance are destroyed. The leader must, in order to consolidate his power, then build his family around him. After me, my sons, my daughters, my brothers, my sisters, my in-laws, their children, and no one else. This becomes terrible. One has to then resort to anything, to kill, to intimidate anybody else who stands in the way of that project. They have, on the other hand, to rob as much money as possible, which is not theirs, which belongs to the people, in order to operationalize that project of power. They have to obtain obeisance and avoid displeasure amongst their followers. So they begin to encourage and facilitate corruption among the followers. Within the institutions of government, which seeps right down to the people, a political culture of corruption, practiced with utmost impunity, takes over. The soul of a nation is thus destroyed. The ethics, the spirituality, the caring for others are replaced by self-interest of the leaders and their cohorts. The poor can continue to be poor. The underprivileged must tolerate their suffering. We, the leaders, will continue regardless, along our path of self-glorification and enrichment. This is a very dangerous attitude and policy for leaders. What solutions can we employ to resolve this? I don't have a magic wand for this, and I don't think any one of us do. But I would humbly propose that education and more education in every way would be a major solution. Education at home, education in the institutions of learning, schools, universities, and so on, education by religious leaders would be able to attack the root of such problems. We know that education is not only about learning of books and the acquisition of knowledge. It is equally importantly about the acquisition of good ethics, morality, spirituality. All this has to be taught. We are not born with it. It is not in our genes. It has to be taught by our parents in our homes, by our teachers at school, by our religious leaders. School is the most important institution that fashions a person's life from childhood. A child spends most of his waking hours in school and very little at home. Teachers have a sacred responsibility to fashion children to be good human beings, whilst giving them, of course, the required knowledge and skills. Hence, also the importance of institutions such as the Art of Living to educate and develop the spirituality of individuals. Here, I would like to end my pontificating and perhaps very briefly talk about my experience as a leader, because I think I stand here as such, and that is why perhaps you thought of making me a part of this great event. I was asked to talk about this, if not, I don't normally talk about myself. As a leader, like most leaders, especially in our part of the world, in a poor country, and in addition, a country which was at war, a terrible civil war, the challenges were immense. I shall limit myself only to the two major temptations I mentioned earlier, and how I managed to overcome them: power and corruption, the greed for power. Perhaps first, I never forgot that that power was a sacred thing I held in trust for the people who put me there, that I had no divine right to hold that power in any other way if not for the people's wish, that I had no right to guarantee my children, my family, my everybody to hang on forever after me, that I had to go home when I finished my duties. Then one begins to think differently. I knew that I had no right to help myself to state assets or demand commissions for government tenders, thereby pauperizing the state and bleeding the economy, because corruption will increase the costs of every development project in a country by massive amounts, and the country pays. Therefore, I remember I came in screaming against corruption, and we did quite a lot of things for that. Within the first few months itself, we brought in laws, we amended the constitution, we brought in regulations, practices, procedures. Tender procedures were streamlined and published, and all tenders had to be done accordingly. Institutions were built for procurements of government, and of course laws to punish the corrupt. And I did not at any moment, at no point did I influence the judges or the people in the bribery commissions, bribery and corruption commissions and such like institutions to change their decisions as I wished. Once they were appointed, I never ever spoke to them. Then I believe also that personal conduct of the leader is extremely important, as I stated earlier, in guaranteeing honesty, integrity, the transparency and good governance. If the leader falters, then there is no end to what can happen and what will happen. Another example of how, under great stress, of course, I was able to keep myself on even keel was to go back on the way my parents brought us up and bring up my children like that.